And if you get in this business, promise you the first year is going to be great. It's going to be the honeymoon. You're going to love it, right? Because sales, you're going to have lines out the door. You're going to be happy. But then that kind of tails off. People get tired of you. You mess up a couple of orders. They don't come back for as much. And people just get the competition comes in. And just got to understand things are going to, if you think you're doing, oh, I'm doing $100,000 a week, your first month, you're going to fall. And I always say, some people say, you're going to fall 30%. No, you're going to fall 50%, if not more.
All right, guys, today's guest is Chris Olexa, founder and CEO of Aspire to Be, and a franchisee with Buffalo Wild Wings, Arby's, Rusty Taco, and Mellow Mushroom, managing a $30 million business across 14 locations. This episode is brought to you by 10rep, the fractional real estate team helping restaurant franchisors and franchisees scale smarter. If you guys have been following the show and listening to episodes every week and you haven't left a review or subscribed on YouTube or to the podcast, I have a quick favor to ask. It would mean the world to me if you guys could do those two things. And I really have not been consistent in asking this. I don't know why, I just haven't been, but I have recently learned why it's so important. When you comment, when you subscribe, when you leave a review, it kind of wakes up the algorithm, lets them know that people are paying attention to the show. And when that happens, we're able to push this content out to more people. We can have bigger guests. We can continue to expand on our production capabilities. So if you could do that, my promise to you is that I will continue to improve the show. My goal this year is to attend more live events. So we'll do that. We'll get bigger guests. We'll get more creative with some of the content that we're going to do. And we'll do that all with your support. So if you could do that, I'd be forever grateful. Thank you and enjoy today's episode.
So I'm on a tractor a lot, and unfortunately, I just had to put one of my main horses down. Just got old, and I'm not used to that because I'm not from the country, and my wife is. So I asked the vet. I was like, "How do you do this?" He said, "Well, I'm going to walk him out in the pasture, and I'm going to put him to sleep." And he was old, and getting very feeble. It was time, and so I said, "Do I got to go dig a hole?" He said, "No, the county. You just call the county. They come dig." And that's what this county division. They're always burying livestock. So I was out there for the last 2 days, kind of packing it and doing some work in the. But I'm out in the land a lot in the weekend. So yeah, a little tan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think when we first started talking, you were headed out on a ski trip.
Yeah, went to with the kids. We try to go skiing every other year with my kids, and enjoy the crap out of skiing.
That's it. Outdoors. That's the place to be. Well, welcome to the show. We've, you guys are kind of just jumping in here, but we have been trying to make this happen. Been
months
busy on both sides here, but we're here now. We're here.
Yes,
now. That's all that matters. So welcome to the show, and we'll do all the. You guys are gonna get a little bit behind the scenes now. We'll do all the recording, formal intro stuff later, but I'd love for you just to kind of touch on who you are and where you're at, and then we'll get into some questions.
Cool. My name's Chris Olexa. I'm the CEO, founder of Aspire to Be Hospitality Group. I started out, it's me and my wife. My wife is the CFO of the company and co-founder. To back up real quickly, me and my wife met in high school as sophomores. She was a cheerleader. I was a football player. And the only reason I was staying in school and passing high school was because of her and because of football. Because if you didn't make passing grades, you couldn't play. I grew up in a family that was a broken home. I lived with my mother. We grew up on food stamps, lived in not the best neighborhoods. I pick on this, I think every year. It seemed like we lived in a different house, moved around a lot. But I love my mother to death. She taught me a lot. And I tell her this too. You taught me a lot what not to be like, kind of in a way. I didn't want to live that lifestyle. And I always had a dream and passion of owning my own business. I worked in a business that is a furniture store, and I saw the young owner living that life of being able to coach his kids in little league sports and just had the ability to kind of move around and take vacations. I thought, man, I want to do this. So I always had that dream and passion. And my wife, went to college to be a nurse, and she had that dream and passion too. And I worked at this furniture store, tried to go to college, attended a college for about a year, could not afford it. And I always say there was no pictures in the books. So I just couldn't get it. And so I dropped out of college, and me and my wife had this ambition and drive to own our own business. Back then, the internet, what it is today, right. We knew franchising was simpler because we knew we could put the hard work in, but we didn't know the blueprint. It's, we didn't know the book to follow. So we'd go to the bookstores all the times, Books a Million, and we'd look at franchising books and magazines and kind of what you're doing now. Wish your podcast was around back then. It helped out a lot, especially with real estate selection and,
Yeah.
LOIs and things like that. But
Yeah.
we found, and then me and Kim went to a brand called Buffalo Wild Wings years ago, and we fell in love with it. We thought we can do this. So back then, you send a letter in, an email. It really wasn't the internet as much though, and we got it. We got the pamphlet in, and we read all about Buffalo Wild Wings, and they approved us as a franchisee. First off, $700,000 to build one. I didn't have near that much money and didn't have the experience. So we kind of like, wait a minute, we don't have enough cash to do this, and we got to start smaller. So we applied for a brand called Quiznos.
Yeah.
And that's when Quiznos was very small before they took off.
Yeah.
Got accepted, went to the bank, asked for a loan, gave them the financials, and they turned me down because they said that, I needed, I think it was $68,000 to put down, and all I had was 40,000 cash saved up that me and my wife saved because you had to put, 20% down on it. So we went
Yeah.
back, started saving, cut some expenses at home, and saved that money. And I went back to that bank with a cash bag full of the money and set it down and said, "Got it." He laughed and said, "You kidding me, kid?" Back then I was 26. And I was like, "I'm ready." And hey, that's the
That's
story.
that's
We
great.
opened our first Quiznos, and they'd line out the door all day. I worked every day for 2 years at that store before we ended up selling it. But we opened our second one after that first year. My wife quit her job, worked at that one. A lot of young franchisees don't know this, but you got to work at them. You have to be
Yeah.
in your store. We ran them. We were the GMs. Our
That's
kids
it.
grew up in the back of our stores. We were so blessed that we sold both of those. We went, got back. I called Buffalo Wild Wings. After selling those, I had the money to do it, and we bought our first Buffalo Wild Wings. And then the story starts there. We opened that one. Took a little while to build it because Buffalo Wild Wings wasn't as big as what it was back then. This was 22, 21 years ago. Took the
Wow.
profits off of that one, opened our second ones, took the profits off of that too, opened our third. Today, we have 18 open restaurants, opening our 19th up here in May. We have 6 different unique brands, Buffalo Wild Wings being the main. We're also an Arby's franchisee. We have 3 Arby's. We have a brand called Mellow Mushroom, brand called
Mm-hmm.
Rusty Taco. We do have 2 Buffalo Wild Wings Go. That's the new concept that they're
Oh
doing.
yeah.
It's a wing stop, but Buffalo Wild Wings.
Mm-hmm.
We signed a agreement to do 12 of those, so we're on our second, opening our third in May. We just opened a new Buffalo Wild Wings in Missouri City. We have 3 more develop on our agreement, and then we also have a brand called, I'm sure everybody knows this one, Starbucks. So I'm a
Hmm.
Starbucks licensee. To
Oh
me,
wow.
that's one of the coolest logos that you could put on a small guy
Yeah.
like me to have that, and it's a cool concept to be part of. But we have one of those, so
Wow.
that kind of sums it up where we're at.
Yeah. I mean, wow. I mean, so I have so many questions, but Quiznos, are they still around? I should know that. But are
They
they still around?
are. They are. They're the best sandwich, man. I wish somebody could have bought that brand and did something with it. And there's a lot that we can go into what I think went wrong with the brand, but
Mm,
they have a great product. There are a couple left. The franchisor did sell off to somebody. I try to keep up with them, but they're not, everyone I see is like in airports. Matter of
hmm.
fact, I can't remember. I think it's like the Cabo Airport, some airport somewhere. And me
Hmm.
and Kim go to it every time we're there. But it's still here. Yeah.
Nostalgia. And when you were looking at different options and you settle on Quiznos, like were you dead set like you were gonna go with we're gonna continue to go down this Quiznos path, or did you always think you were gonna go for multiple different brands, or you just didn't really know what you were doing?
First, I didn't really know what I was doing, right? I knew what I wanted to get into. I knew what the end goal was, that I wanted to own a bunch of them, but I didn't know which route it was going to take. So that helped me pick the brand called Quiznos out because they were young and there wasn't a lot of them in my market. So I can build them out. Sometimes people want to go grab a franchise, and the opportunity to grow is not there because there's so many around them. And what? So I did have an ultimate brand idea to think that I was going to own a lot of this, but I had to start small and one. But that was the vision of buying Quiznos because I wanted to do multiple of them, and I had the opportunity at first to build that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, at that time, a lot of people listening to the show probably never even heard of Quiznos, but they were, to me,
No,
they were the newer like version of Subway. Like, I was never a Subway guy. I still don't understand Subway.
yeah,
Sorry, anybody out there. I know they do tremendously
yeah,
well, but Quiznos was the toasted sub. Like that was a totally new
yeah.
thing, and everyone was like, "Wow!" And that was really caught everybody's attention to me because it was like you're gonna go up against Subway, and that was the main
Yeah.
differentiator. Am I right? Like the toasted thing, that was the big
Yeah,
differentiator between.
it was Subway. I always used to say this: that Subway's a sandwich that I can go make in my house in 2 minutes, right? Just two pieces of bread, some lettuce,
Right.
tomatoes, and mayonnaise and mustard, right?
Yeah.
But the Quiznos sandwich was a toasted sub. They didn't use mayonnaise or mustard. They used their French dressings, ranch dressings, different kind of honey mustards. They're the ones that kind of introduced that, and so it's a great brand. It was a great product, but maybe I don't want to get into that of what I think went wrong. But there's a lot that we can get in. I think I talked to in one of my podcasts. I think we went into that. What happened to the brand? But yeah, go look for it. But it's a cool sandwich. It's still around if you can find it. I would suggest Google them and find one close to you and go try the Honey
Right.
Bacon Club or the Italian. It's really good stuff.
No, that sounds good. You mentioned growing up under tough circumstances. You mentioned football. I'm a football player too. Played in high school, played in college. I'm a big believer in that those circumstances and sports, football in particular, to me, I make references all the time like, hey, let's get this past the goal line. Let's move the ball down the field. Hey, we're just at halftime. How do you feel like those two situations, I know they're kind of different kind of questions, but how do they really mold your drive and your mindset as an entrepreneur in this space?
I think in football, going through football when I played, it was a lot different than my kid played a little bit. But I did notice in my son's high school football years, the coaches were tough, right? I mean, it's a tough, you got to be tough physically and mentally to play football. And it's a team sport, right? It's not just set it and forget it. And it's called, and I do this with my teams in our leadership meetings. A football game is played by quarters and minutes and plays, right? And you can't just go out with the game plan and say, okay, this is what we're going to do today. This is what the plays we're going to run today. Because guess what? You don't know who's going to get hurt. And on the restaurant business, you don't know who's going to show up today.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're the manager there, and three cooks called in. What are you going to do? Close for the day, or you lose your starting quarterback? What are you going to do for the day? You're just going to quit the game? No, you got to figure out and change your game plan. So I kind of utilize that a lot too in my team. And when I try to tell stories a lot, about situations to my team so they'll understand it. And I use that a lot. It's like, hey, just because we showed up today, the staff didn't show up. Guess what? One air conditioner's not working in the store. Well, figure it out. I mean, we got to adjust it. We can't just close, and we got to call the repair company. What are we going to do that day? And football is the same way because you never know what's going to get hurt. You never know what the weather's going to be like, and you never know when you're going to fumble. And when you
Yeah.
fumble, what happens when you fumble? And they look at me, and I'm like, everybody dives on the ball. So when we have a guest screw up, that's what we call it. Hey, we had a fumble. So that means dash to the ball, run to the ball,
Love
fix that guest complaint, get their food remade, and fight for the ball. And guess what? One of my guys asked me this other day, say, if I keep fumbling and you're not going to give me the ball anymore. I said, no, in the game, if you're my starting running back and you fumble the ball, I'm going to pull you out and I'm going to rip your butt. And I'm going to make you sit over and sweat for about 3 plays. And I'm going to look at you, grab your face, and I said, I know you can do it. Get back in, but don't fumble my ball. And I think that's the mindset that I kind of run, a little bit more strict football talk, but then that love and respect at
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, and I tell this to my daughter, I've had to tell her the story a couple times. I got screamed at for something that I did one time, and the coach walked me very quickly all the way down to the other end of the field. And I'm screaming at him the whole time, why are you always picking on me? Why are you always giving me such a hard
Yeah.
time? And he's like, when I stop picking on you, that's when you should be worried. It's a way of caring. It's like a weird
Yeah.
thing, but to me, that always sticks with me. And like the fumbling and getting back up and getting hit in the mouth, and 10 seconds later, you got to get back up and face that same guy again. I think there's so many correlations that I'm not sure everybody gets. So maybe we come across as a little crazy using these references, but I really appreciate the fact that you use that. Particularly the fumble one. That's a good one. I might steal that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yep.
Resilience, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Can you do it? Can you
It
take it
does.
when you get punched in the mouth a little bit? And there's a lot of getting punched in the mouth, so I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now, you have gone to different brands, right? A lot of franchisees will stick with one brand. What is something now that you've been in this for a lot? You started when you were in your mid 20s, right? I believe like
Yep.
25, 26.
26 when I started, 51 now. So
Man, you're getting ready to retire. I'm glad we got you on the show before that, before you hung him up.
I don't know. I'd love to. Yes.
What do you look for in these brands? Like, what's driving you to go look for another brand? Is it just you want to be diversified? Is it just general interest? Is there anything in particular that you look to when you're evaluating a new concept to kind of invest in?
I kind of, I look at growth opportunity. That's the biggest thing, right? Is what?
Yeah.
How big is the brand? What's their recognition in that market? Are they there? Are they not? And Buffalo Wild Wings, I was lucky to get into it at an early age when they were building out new. And so now these brands, you got to kind of look for the hot brand, what's out there, and what's the growth strategy
Mm-hmm.
look like? People don't understand this. In restaurants, you're dealing with pennies and nickels. Some of these big corporations, they're dealing with dollars. So you
Mm-hmm.
buy a small sandwich shop, and there's a hot one out there right now, Jersey Mike's, doing really well. But sometimes it's like Quiznos. I was doing really well, but at the end of the day, when I was in my prime doing great P&Ls, I mean, I was only making $100,000 a year, and people think you're getting millions. I mean, these stores are doing $20,000, $25,000 a week. 30,000 if you're lucky in a sandwich store. You're not making a lot of money. So I tell people when they get in these concepts, it's like buying a job. You're not going to just
Yep.
go buy the sandwich concept or whatever, or a small franchise and start out and just, go sit home and go sit on the beach and take a crazy vacation. No, you're going to work there every day. You're going to work there every day. First, you need to learn the business and learn what's going on,
Yep.
because as soon as you hire a manager, they're not going to run it the way you run it. And so then you got to start thinking, okay, scaling, rise, right? So if I want to own 5 Jersey Mikes, wow, I can make a pretty good income if I run them all well, pick good sites, have great teams, and oversee them very well. So I think you look at that like the scalable market. Like how many can I build? Arby's, for example, I bought a 4 store territory, and they're all within, I don't know, a 30-minute, 40-minute drive time from each other. And so I can put one multi-unit over to see all of them. But at the end of the day, one Arby's you're not going to make a living off of and stay home.
Mm.
You got to have multiple of them. Buffalo Wild Wings. I mean, if you own one, yeah, you can do well, but you want to own multiples, and that's where it gets in and that's why franchising is built that way. It's built to duplicate it. So I think when you're looking at it for brand, if any young franchisee or somebody wants to get in the franchisee business, look into a brand that's growing, that's out there. Go sit in it. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
did when I bought my Quiznos. Me and my wife went to the one in Lake Charles, which is about a 45-minute way. The people that are running it, I think it was the owner at the time, probably thought we were crazy because we went in there like every other day, set and order a sandwich, and drank Coke and just watched them how they did it, and watch what
Smart.
can we do that. And I
Yeah.
suggest you go do that. Watch your brands, watch your traffic counts, watch how many people walk in, walk out. And look at the community. What's in that community? What's doing well? And what's pushing? What's missing here? There's some hot concepts out there that I keep my own. One of them, me and my wife loving that. And you probably heard of Dave's Hot Chicken. I don't know if y'all
Mm.
have them up there in the north yet. It's a
Yep.
great product. I love them. Are they going to compete with everybody else out there? I don't know. You got to kind of keep your eye on that. But it seems like they're doing well. But
Yeah.
that's where you got to get in these concepts a little early. If you get in too late, you're way behind now.
Yeah.
Like Buffalo Wild Wings, you really can't get into the brand anymore. They're always
Yeah.
saturated. So kind of look for that concept, and that's what I kind of look at: growth model, and is it easily adaptable to put into my system to run?
I completely respect that. That's a very fair statement. I think that that's exactly what we've had other folks on here. Particularly, I'm thinking now of Jeff Fenster from Everbowl. He was talking about the difference between investing in like a McDonald's and an Everbowl, looking for that upside. So I love to hear that sameness among you guys. So now, as you're looking at these growth opportunities, are you more apt to look at a Buffalo Wild Wings go? Like, do you see that as more of the future, what's happening, or do you just kind of see it as I mean, is that something that's really going to be not taking over, but really like a solid avenue for the QSR space? Are these sort of like
Yes.
offshoots of brands?
I kind of look back and when I talk about the 6 unique brands that we run, I go back and evaluated about a year ago and thought, where are we the strongest at? And it's Buffalo Wild Wings. I mean, they endured the economy, they endured COVID better than most, than any concepts out there that I run for sure. And I kind of look at that and kind of thought Buffalo Wild Wings. I've been in the business so long now. It's like I can run them with my eyes closed. I can look at a P&L right. I can walk in the store. I can sense it when I walk into it. The other concepts are a lot different. I understand the brand. I understand the leadership of the brand. So when I saw Go running out, they were pushing that out. I thought we do so much in takeout and delivery.
Mm.
And I thought this is an avenue of growth. The cost to get in it, that's what you need to look at too. What's your return on investment? How much are you going to spend to build this place? And at the end
Mm.
of the day, if you run the number that they tell you, deduct 20%, 25% what they say that's going to be the average, of a
Yeah.
store, deduct that, and build your P&L, build your budget at your break even point. So go into it and think, hey, if I make this much money, this is what I got to build. And this is where I got to break even at with your loan, with interest, taxes, everything, payroll, food cost. With Kim's vision, that's the way we build. They'll say, oh, you're going to do a Buffalo Wild Wings. These stores average $3 million a year. Go, you're going to average 1.1 million a year. Whatever those numbers are in each concept. Well, you go into rock bottom. So, okay, 750,000, what I got to break. So then you start your rent rate, right? Where can my rent fit? And then you just back your number into it. Say, okay, if I do 750, I can afford all these numbers, but I won't make a dollar.
Are you a growing franchise caught in the real estate trap? You know you need experienced real estate leadership to grow, but you're facing an impossible choice. You either have to hire a full-time director of real estate at $200,000 a year, or risk your brand's future with generic commercial brokers who don't understand the restaurant business, nor do they understand franchising. The cost of getting it wrong is staggering. Check this out. 72% of emerging brands cite real estate delays as their number one challenge, with each delayed opening burning through about $48,000 in lost revenue every single month. Poor locations don't just hurt the profits, they can permanently damage your franchise's reputation. That's where 10rep comes in. We've created a revolutionary solution that gives you senior level real estate expertise at a fraction of the cost for a full-time hire. Our flexible month-to-month model combines deep operational experience, cutting-edge AI, and nationwide network of franchise specialized brokers, all without the burden of salaries, benefits, travel, office expenses, or even long-term contracts. Join successful brands who trust 10rep to turn real estate from a growth challenge into a strategic advantage. Whether you need full service management or project-based support, we scale with you. Don't let real estate hold your franchise back. Visit www.10rep.co to learn how 10rep can help you scale smarter.
Personally, but I still will be in business. I'm not upside down. Then everything after that's like so much easier, right? Then it's like, okay, you didn't budget a million, now you're doing 750 and you're freaking out. Now it's like driving sales. So I feel like, to go back on the Go brand, I look at Wingstop. Their takeout delivery is killing it. I feel like we got a way better product. Our twice fried wings are nationally rolling out everywhere. We got really good salsas. And I felt like if they can do their average units, we can do the same thing. And some of our Buffaloes, I got some major big players. And if you look at the sales I do in takeout and delivery, it actually kind of hampers the dining experience because we got so much money going out the back door that it slows down the production internal store because kitchens are only so big. And all restaurants are seeing that problem now that they're doing so much takeout delivery that it's affecting their dine-in business and their ticket times. So I felt like the Go is the way. The future for me right now is I'm really investing in my sports bars, Buffaloes, and growth, and in our Goes.
Yeah, smart. That's a really smart way to approach it. I mean, I always talk about using the rent number to help with your projections. Now, it's also funny you talk about that stacking up of orders and how it might impact. I've worked with a restaurant consultant. I'm on the independent side, and if a unit has like 4 or 5 locations, his first thing to do is like, you're not opening another location. You're going to open up a place that's just going to handle all your deliveries. Like a regional brand. It's got and that's been there. He said that alleviates so much pressure from the stores and allows them to focus more on that. So similar thought process, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
What's been your proudest moment? Let's say in the last 5 years, post-COVID, what's been your proudest moment, would you say?
Business wise, there's a ton of family wise, right? But my proudest
Yep.
moment, I think, people, I get that question asked a lot, like, it's kind of different. It's like, what's success? What's your proudest moment? I mean, when the proudest moment is knowing that I operate some of the most profitable, most highest volume Buffalo Wild Wings in the system, right? I mean, because we got some great stores and they're in markets that you would have never even thought that would do the volume they do. Proudest moment is seeing the people that work for me, though. When I bring on a new VP of operations or a new even general managers or people in our corporate office, and I say this all the time, success to me is not money. It's seeing opportunities given to people that I am able to provide. right? It's like buying a guy that works for me. I'd say this story a lot in different meetings. I mean, when he came to work for our company and then he was so excited, he got married, had his first kid, he bought this first brand new house and he invited me over and me and my wife went and saw it and it was like a brand new, beautiful home. And I just told him, I almost cried. I said, to me, knowing that I came from poverty, food stamps, living in trailer parks, just wherever we could live, knowing that the company that I have is able to offer opportunities to people
Yeah.
that can buy a brand new home as beautiful as this. And he was just blown away. He said, "You're that proud of my house?" I said, "Dude, this is beautiful. I never had anything like this. I never had a house like this." And then, another guy that worked for me, he just got promoted. And he said, "Chris, I've been working for the restaurant business for years as general managers and worked for you multiple times." He worked for us for years, left to go to opportunity, but came back. And he just got moved into our corporate office. He's actually oversees all our training in all our locations. And he said, "I've never seen a schedule like this that I get off on weekends." And he said, and he got the holiday schedule for the office where we're closed on, Good Friday, closed on these days. He said, "I never had this opportunity." He said, "I have 3 kids. His wife's expecting another one." He said, "I've never been off on weekends and could just attend
Wow.
church regularly." Dude, I don't care what you put
That alone, yeah.
anywhere. I mean, what kind of car I drive, anything in my life. Those are those moments that when you work as hard as I have and my family, they pick on this because at our dinner table, all our kids, I got 3 that go to college now and at A&M. One just graduated from A&M in December, and I got an 11-year-old. And when they talk about the dinner table, they say, "Can we stop talking business?" Because they grew up in this business. They just know every day me and Kim are talking about it. And knowing that we're offering opportunities this way to people that work for us, man, it helps me sleep at night. I tell you that.
I would, yeah. I mean, that's the thing because you're doing this not just for them, but they have family, right? That family extends on you. You multiply every employee by 3 as to who you're trying to feed there, and that's a great accomplishment.
Yeah,
All right, so now I have to get into one of my favorite segments, and we call this real estate reality. Okay,
yeah,
and I'm just going to give you my opinion just on what I think in the franchise space with real estate, and then I got a couple questions for you about kind of your experience. But I generally, as a broker looking from the outside, as a former restaurant guy, don't understand. I understand the liability part. I get the corporate jargon, but the
yeah,
distance that is put between a lot of franchisors and the franchisees, particularly the new ones, right? The older, the more sophisticated ones like yourself and other guys have more understanding about the real estate site selection process. Arguably the biggest decision that they're going to make, right? So,
yes,
given that could be a whole separate show. I won't drag you down
mm,
that sewer with me, but you have said before, I read it or I heard it somewhere, one of my mantras, which is never fall in love with a site. I have a feeling that there's a hard lesson behind that one. I'd love to hear that story.
yeah. There, well, luckily it's not a site that I didn't have to give up. Right, it's a site that I didn't get, and I got sore about it. Right, and I kicked the walls, and Kim's like, "We're not overpaying for that site. We're not going to get in that situation." And 2 years later, after we pick another site, I'm like, "I'm glad I didn't fall in love with that site." I'm glad I didn't just throw everything at it because man, that in this business right now, real estate is crazy.
Yeah.
When I bought my first Buffalo Wild Wings, I signed a letter of intent and got my rent rate at like $14 a square foot. That's crazy, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm in some centers that I did some leases, and we always do a 10-year lease with 4 or 5 year options now in them. And they bump up after those times, but still the rent rates are crazy. I'm looking at a new center right now in Katy, Texas, which is a very growing area and all that.
Yeah.
But I got the LOI yesterday, and it's a great end cap, beautiful spot, going to be great. But $48 a square foot. And people, and
Yeah.
you're right, they don't franchisors didn't teach that to franchisees enough. That's an
Yeah.
occupancy rate that you better set at, and you better listen to this guy's podcast because he does a really good job teaching you that. Because you better learn up on that's the most crucial decision you'll ever make in this business because that's a commitment. You used to sign 5 year leases. Now they're pushing for 10 and you're signing a lease
Yeah.
for 10 years. And if you get in this business, promise you the first year is going to be great. It's going to be the honeymoon. You're going to love it, right? Because sales, you're going to have lines out the door. You're going to be happy. But then that kind of tails off. People get tired of you. You mess up a couple of orders. They don't come back for as much. And people just get the competition comes in. And just got to understand things are going to, if you think you're doing, oh, I'm doing $100,000 a week, your first month, you're going to fall. And I always say, some people say, you're going to fall 30%. No, you're going to fall 50%, if not more. So in that honeymoon period, but that's a commitment you're making for 10 years. And I'm in one right now. I'm in one right now that the shopping center went dark, the mall went nasty. It's just bad. And I got 2 years left, and I'm not at the break even point anymore. I'm below it. And the landlord will not do anything because they're going to make us commit to that 2 years. And if I wish I could move it, but I'm just in a bad center, and it looked great 12 years ago when I signed the lease when it was being built. 10 years ago when I moved in, it looked great. But Macy's closed, Sears closed, these big boxes are closing, malls are looking terrible, closing, close. Well, guess what? Half my parking lot is dark. And there's ways that you can watch his podcast or learn on about putting stuff in your lease that it goes dark, it drops your rent, little things like that. But it's a 10-year commitment. And you better have that occupancy rate set in there. And that's what I told you. You have to do the break even point and put that occupancy rate in there. What your rent rate's going to be. And sometimes you got to move the square footage, right? A Go, for example, we got some high square footage area. It was expensive to build in this Buffalo Wild Wings. I told you it's 40, 48, $49 a square foot. So we're not going to build this 5,800 square foot Buffaloes. First, we're going to try to negotiate that down.
Yeah.
And then if not, we're going to squeeze that square footage down to try to make that occupancy rate fit to where we need. So it's like a sliding scale. And then you got to realize, well, heck, I'm losing seats. So where's that magic number at? But I love you did a podcast the other day. You talked about this. There's different. And you're onto something too. And believe me, I've copied it and I sent it to Kim, my wife. Where we're trying to negotiate different ways around the lease. Right? You put it in performance. What do you do? Because these landlords, you got to realize it's a two-way street, and they're not yet. You know why? Because landlords are investors. They are investors. They're going to build that shopping center. They're going to charge you the highest price, and then they're going to sell it. Now you're dealing with the next investor, and he's committed to that number because he has a loan. So he's going to hold you to that number. Now, the old days, you remember 25 years ago, normally you're dealing with mom and pops, and they'd work with you. They'll, yeah, let me work with you here. Let me help you out. Now, no, it's all an investment. It's like you don't pay it's like your bank. You don't pay that mortgage, they coming to get it.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. And I tell you what, that is a big thing for me. And I think a lot of franchisees don't realize that they can push back a little bit because, as you know, you get presented with a brochure from a developer or a broker and it says, 29,000 cars a day. The Whole Foods in this center does 100 million a year and this, that, and the other thing. I tell people all the time, clients, not my clients, because I want people to know. Ask the landlord and says, well, what happens if they don't? Because you're basing my rent and you're telling me that I should be here and I should pay this rent because of all this. So take it back to you 20 years ago, Macy's, Sears, behemoths in the industry doing tons of volume, but now they don't. But you're still stuck paying the rent. There's got to be some responsibility from my perspective on this part of the landlord to say, yeah, let's adjust it. The data is the technology is there. You can know that every co-tenant is doing. You can know what they're doing up to the day. There should be some adjustment in rent that goes on there, but that's sorry.
Well, I like that you brought that up, and I know we're approaching. This is something that we looked at, and I loved your part when you talked about this. It's all performance, right? It's like, they always want to charge you percentage rent at the end. In years we've always kicked that out, but now we're going to put it back in. It's okay. You want percentage rent, so we're going to work off percentage rent. So we'll pay this rent rate if we do this. We'll pay rent rate through this if we do that. And keep that oxy level where we need it at. So if we're going to open a Buffalo Wild Wings out, we hope it does 3 million, but it does 5. Our rent might be higher, but the landlord should love it. He might be getting more than $48 a square. He might get $51 a square foot. So we're going to approach that. If my landlord's listening, hope he's not.
Just tip your head a little bit.
That's right. But hey, that's what we're coming after, though, right? I think that's what we're going to look at it because it's all performance. Because, like you said, they're selling these beautiful, sexy shopping centers and all this traffic flow and growth rate and Whole Foods. But what happens if Whole Foods closes down? We're mom and pops. If we close down, we're not a big national concept that has a backing of the stock market and things. These we comes out of our pocket. And if you're a franchisee small, and you're going to have to sell your house because you got to pay that rent, or they're going to come after you.
Yeah. Nobody wants that. Yeah, man, that's a whole other episode on its own, whole podcast.
We need to. Yeah.
Do you, now that you've been in it, and maybe we touched on it earlier, but how do you train yourself and maybe even your staff to look for a good market? Like, how are you identifying these markets these days?
Well, a good franchisor is going to send you a market points, seed points, whatever they want to call it, and then you're going to go drive the market by yourself and just sit there and feel it. You can
Hmm.
tell by, and you're probably good at this. You can walk in and think, okay, this feels good. The synergy feels good. There's psychological barriers you got to be aware of. Some people don't want to go on that side of the highway because those stores close down at night and they're not all night operators, or just no traffic through that center. In what times of days? And if you're a restaurant, you got to survive off of breakfast or lunch and dinner. So you need that traffic, you need the parking lot lights on, you need that. Now I train my staff, but it's hard to. Is if you're an owner, you're going to have to get up to scale really quickly, and understand what when you travel, because you can't hire one of your GMs or one of my multi-unit managers aren't going to be able to call and say, hey, this needs to be a site. Now, some of my top leaders will call me and say, hey, why don't we have a site in Katy, Texas? And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a no-brainer. But you got to really trust what the franchisor, and they're supposed to do this. They're supposed to be able to give you the data. They're supposed to be able to give you the information of a seed point. And it's funny, I did drive a seed point one day with corporate on a Buffalo Wild Wings Go, and I parked it at the seed point. And I looked at the corporate guy. I said, are you kidding me? He's like, well, it's on the seat. It's all this data that we got. Well, they hire these companies that do this. I said, I can't even get, my phone has no service here.
Yeah.
Why would you put a store here?
Yeah.
So that's what I said. Go drive the sites and you could tell. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
building a Buffalo Wild Wings Go, a Dave's Hot Chicken, a Jersey Mike's, they're going to give you really, really good information. And then you're going to pull in there and go like, okay, this is really good. And then you're going to call your rent. And you're going to like, oh, maybe not. This is too
Yeah. Right.
expensive or what?
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to what you were saying earlier. It could be a great site, but if the rent doesn't work, it's not right for your brand. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big piece of it. And I tell you what, just my hot take on all the data that everybody talks about. I think it's less about showing you where the market is, and it's
Yeah.
showing you as to what the market is not. So, here's the heat map of all the density of all the great Buffalo Wild Wing customers in Katy, Texas, or in the Houston market, and this is where you should be. I look at, well, we shouldn't be out here. Definitely not. Right. This is definitely not. Why are we even looking at these things? Why are they out here? Like, to me, I take that other perspective. I think that's actually more beneficial. So I don't know, just a tip
You
on
know,
that.
I want to say this, and you talk about other people, and you have to trust yourself. You have to do the hard work yourself too. We have an Arby's out in a location, and when we would ground lease the piece of property. It's a big field and it's a new development. All the developments across the road over here. And Aldi's was coming in, everybody else was coming in right beside us and all. Well, we started early and then we opened the day of COVID.
Oh
So
God.
Aldi and all that ditched their leases or ditched the property. They didn't open. It just stayed of flat grass and trees. You couldn't see our location good. It was hid. And it's been like that for 4 years. Promise to say now everything's opening. We got they're all under construction now. Big shopping center coming behind us. Huge. But one day I was driving there with all my guys, and I make drives with my guys all the time, my leadership. And we just go tour markets and we just go talk about the stores. We walk in, handprints on the door. And I at the red light, I freaked out. I said, oh my God, look at this, guys. Look. So excited. I said, do y'all see what I see? And they're like, I don't know. So we pulled in the parking lot and they all gasped. So what do you see? And they're like, oh, Mr. Chris, the lawn guy will be here tomorrow. And I said, what do you mean? It's the grass is a little high. The sign letter is upside down. I'm like, yeah, we got to fix that. Why is it a B? It should be a D or something. And it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're all sitting there pointing the stuff at the store. And I said, no. So I walked into the corner and it was a big bank thing that says, coming soon, financed by this.
Oh,
And I was like, and they had little flags like you do at a grocery store. And I'm like, that means somebody's building here. That means this is
yeah. Yeah.
finance. They sold it. And I said, look at the little flags out here. They flagged it already, surveyed it. I said, this is development. We've been out here. And they're like, I didn't get that. As an
Yeah.
owner, you would get that. Somebody that's buying into it, you're putting your heart on money, you're going to get that. So don't trust markets by what corporate's telling you. Go drive many a times and look at them.
Now that kind of leads into my next question, which I agree with. Do you feel like franchisees rely too much on one side, either their broker or on the franchisor? Like, do you feel like what level of involvement should they have in the process? I know that's a leading question, but
Yeah, well, your broker and your franchisor should give you the seed points. They should give you the territories. And this is how it works with Buffalo Wild Wings. They'll give us the seed points and territories. We'll go look at the markets now. And then my real estate guys will go out, and these are just, third party. They don't work for me. They make a commission, right? And
mm-hmm.
then they'll go out and they'll find shopping centers. And they'll send me a list of 5 shopping centers. And then I always say, okay, we'll go tour. I'm like, I'll tour with you. No, I don't want to tour with you. I want to tour by
Mm-hmm.
myself because I want to get the vision on my own because I don't want you to sell me on. Because again, real estate guys, they make commission. They're going to try to get you to buy it or not. They want you to buy it.
Yeah.
Even though it sometimes it might not financially fit your needs, and then go drive the market. Then after you find the seed that you like, find the shops, then corporate will do this. Then I'll send it back to corporate Buffalo Wild Wings, their team, and then they'll start pulling all the demos again, and they'll say, yes, this is what traffic counts you have. That they'll verify what the landlord's telling you, because the landlord's going to try to fluff it all up. They're going to make that pretty little drawing, a picture of the shopping center, what it's supposed to look like. When they build it, it's probably not going to look like that. It's not going to look as cool, and the shrubs aren't going to look as nice, and the little waterfalls not probably going to be there. What I'm talking about. And so
I
then you
agree with that.
trust what corporate's telling you. And a lot of corporations, bigger ones, will tell you no or yes, because they got to approve it. The franchisor at the end of the day has to approve the site. Because you got to think of it. If you default, if you're a terrible franchisee and you default, they got to come in and kick you out, take over, or what, put a new franchisee. So they want you going somewhere successful too.
Yeah. That's why those landlords with those fancy videos and flyers and everything are gonna have to back that up, in my opinion. I
Yeah.
think that's coming sooner rather than later.
Like, Where's,
All right.
where's my waterfall? Where'd the waterfall go?
Yeah, exactly. What happened to the light show that happens every night for the kids? It doesn't happen? Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Weird. Okay, so last couple minutes here. Got some quick fire. So just short answers to these questions. I want to just kind
Okay.
of get your real just gut reaction to these. Go to advice for team leadership.
Team leadership. Spend time with your team. I mean, and it can't be a Zoom, right? It can't just be a Zoom. It can't be a phone call. Can't be a text. Get in the car, spend time with your team, and not at lunch, not at coffee. Go in your business
Mm,
and sit down with them, walk them around, and show them what you see and what they don't see.
love that. One thing that you wish franchisees in general understood better. Like, what's your
Um,
advice for in general for the audience?
that they understood better is that at the end of the day, when you're a franchisee, you're paying that royalty rate, right? And so you're going to have to work twice as hard to make that up. And it is a business. It's a business that you have to be in. You have to work in. This is not. You cannot sit from your house and Dallas, Texas, and run stores in Louisiana. You're gonna have to have yourself on the ground. You're not going to be able to hire anybody to run it like you run it. It's your business. You have to be there and be present. As my wife always says, be present, show up.
That's it. What's one mistake that you'll never make again?
I hate admitting to mistakes. As Kim says, never admit to mistakes. I don't know. I think that the mistake that I probably did, I scaled too
Mm,
much. Right?
mm,
If I can go back, I have 6 cool brands, but if I can go back and do it again, I wouldn't have did that.
mm,
Because it puts a lot of strain on your business,
mhm,
and you got to have a lot of good people that work for you. And when I built multiple brands, I scaled too quickly and probably too much. I
mm,
wish I would have found the two, stuck with one or two or three brands, because then
mhm.
I can now I have to micromanage all of them, and I'd rather been managing the two probably.
Yeah.
So be careful when you scale.
And sort of in the same vein here, I don't know if you can answer this, but what's your favorite brand to operate and why?
Favorite brand to operate is it's Buffalo Wild Wings, right? I mean, it's the brand that built me, right? Quiznos started me, but Buffalo Wild Wings I owe a lot to, because it took me from poverty, my wife being a nurse, and it built me and created a opportunity that I have 1,000 employees, and so I'm loyal to that brand. They know I am, and I love it because it's fun, man. Sports, it's beer, it's wings,
Yeah,
you
I
know
love that. Yeah,
stick if you stick to hospitality and clean restaurants, opening 15 minutes early, it's easy to run.
that's it. I love that. All right, so we've had some great takeaways here. So much to talk about. I feel like we can keep talking for a long time.
Yeah.
Resilience, operational excellence, real estate leadership. But you have such an incredible story, so many incredible brands. For anyone who's listening, who's maybe in your shoes when you were 26, 27, who might be struggling, what would you say to them?
I'd say, do it, right? I mean, if you have a vision and you want to do this, and I see people all the time that say, I just want to own my own business, or I want to buy a business. Well, if you really want to, do it. Take that step. It's a perfect time to fail, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
fail, it's your fault. It's people always tell me this, man, I wish I'd have done what you did. You could have. You just got to take
Mm-hmm.
the chance to do it. But the biggest advice I can give you is Proverbs 14:23. All hard work pays off, but mere
Mm,
talk brings you poverty. So don't think you're going to get in any business. Work. I mean, with all these brands, people think I'm just the wealthiest person and we're financially does great. But I work 10 times harder than I did 10 years ago with these more brands. It's just I work at it every day. I don't sleep. I don't sleep at night because I'm always worried about my company. I'm always worried about what's next. I'm worried about my staff. I'm worried about my man. But if you're a young guy and you want to get in the business, franchising is great, right? They give you the blueprint. They help you walk through it. But understand when you get there that you have to put the work in and you will never not work. Some of the most successful people. I mean, look at Elon Musk. Look at that guy. A guy never sleeps. He works all the time. Most successful entrepreneurs and business owners, including myself, never stop. It never turns off, and it never will. On vacations, this thing rings all the time. And I never get away from it. But we're built that way, though. If you're 26 and you're thinking this, you'll know you're built for it. Then do it because you will be successful if you put the work in.
Chris, thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining me today. Looking forward to following your growth story. You guys have a tremendous podcast of your own. I know you mentioned on a hiatus, but there are a lot of great episodes out there on YouTube. You guys want to check it out. Where else can guys find you, get in touch with you if they want to?
Man, we're on Instagram, email, Aspire to Be Hospitality Group on internet. You can always reach out to me. I'm at my Facebook, Instagram. I'm active on that. I have my team active on it. TikTok, we're trying to get our word out. And it's really inspiring words right now. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to sell you a book. I mean, I'd love you to go hit the subscribe button on the podcast. You know how that works. And we're about to start shooting our new season this Friday. Will be our first episode, kind of a more of an inspirational thing. I'm not going to be just pouring information into you that way. I'm not selling anything to you. Me and Kim just feel it's our duty to give back and share our story and let know that hardworking people that wasn't born with all the money in the world and didn't have the highest education in the world can do it with hard work. And we just want to share our story. So, yeah.
That's awesome. All right, Chris, thank you so much. Guys, listen, if you are a franchisee, if you are a franchisor, don't forget about the Close Monday Collective on LinkedIn. If that's where you want to be, we are taking applications for that group now. Still plenty of room. Chris, we may invite you in there to have a talk one day over on LinkedIn. We'll keep your eye out for that invite. In the meantime, keep doing what you're doing. I really appreciate you taking your time and very, very powerful, insightful stuff. I'm sure a lot of takeaways here for the audience. Thank you.
Appreciate you, my friend. Thank you, sir.